Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
Today, we're actually going to talk about the treadmill. And if we're talking about the treadmill, you might think that this would be in our health unit or exercise unit or whatever. But actually, it's in our history unit. We're talking about the origins of the treadmill. Treadmill, in case you wanted to know, is that device that people use at the gym to run on, basically, 跑步机, because a treadmill just keeps going over and over, and you can keep running in the same place. But there have been other uses for the treadmill over the years, and we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the treadmill.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I currently have something that's similar to a treadmill, but it's called elliptical bike. Elliptical trainer, I guess. It's not really a bike, but it's the kind where it has wheels, and instead of just walking, it protects your knees. Yeah.
It kind of moves your legs and your arms at the same time, right? As you're kind of standing up as you do it.
Yeah.
It's a type of exercise machine. Myself, I use some bicycle rollers. Okay, I just take my bicycle and put them on the rollers, and I could ride the bicycle inside the house.
Well, that's nice.
And it also lets me practice my balance and stuff like that. It's kind of a similar concept, a treadmill, in which you're just going over and over and staying in the same place. But we're specifically talking about like an exercise machine that you're walking or running on in the same place as a way to exercise indoors, maybe on a rainy or cold day. So let's talk about the history or the origins of the treadmill right now. Let's read the entire contents of our lesson one time.
Today is cardio day. Rows of exercise machines line the gym floor, and all but one are occupied. You hop on. At the touch of a button, the rubber belt of the treadmill begins to glide underneath you. For the next 20 minutes, the pitter-patter of your soles hitting the belt fills the room. Indeed, no gym is complete without the treadmill. These cardio machines can be programmed to simulate the great outdoors, allowing you to adjust the speed and incline as you please. Despite this, treadmills were not invented for the sole purpose of fitness. Before the introduction of fossil-fueled machines in agriculture, treadmills were used on farms and mills to churn butter, knead dough, grind grain, or pump water. Initially, these devices relied on wind or water to operate, both of which could not provide continuous power. To increase productivity, farmers turned to horses, goats, dogs, and even human power to rotate the wheels of their farming equipment. The treadmill was also introduced to prisons, but not for the purposes of keeping prisoners fit. Instead, it was a cruel form of punishment. In 1818, Sir William Cobbett devised the everlasting staircase to reform convicts. The correctional tool was nothing more than a rotating, hollow cylinder with wooden steps around it. Inmates would spend an average of 10 hours per day climbing an equivalent of 17,000 feet. The prison treadmill was not without its critics, though, and thanks to the Prison Act, it was finally abolished in 1898. Over a century later, some people still regard the treadmill as a torture device. Running with no end in sight can seem pointless, but don't let this stationary machine fool you. It's still one of the most popular pieces of gym equipment around for burning calories.
Okay, everybody, let's talk about our article today. One sentence at a time. The origins of the treadmill. Origins are just where something comes from. What is the origin of the windmill, for example? Who invented the windmill, etc.? Well, today we're talking about the origins of the treadmill, where it comes from and stuff like that. So here's a possible situation you might see with a treadmill nowadays. Today is cardio day. Rows of exercise machines line the gym floor, and all but one are occupied and you hop on. Okay, so yes, if you're going to the exercise gym, I guess gyms have different days for different types of exercise. I've never been to an exercise gym. Well, I was there once with a friend, but not often enough to know if they have different days for different activities. But I guess this particular day is the day for cardio exercise. Cardio just means your heart, and it's probably short for cardiovascular exercise, which means like jogging, swimming, exercise that you do for a long period of time, generally at the same pace.
Yeah, that gets your heart going. It's really pumping hard. You're breathing hard. If you're really doing cardio day, you probably aren't having these long conversations. You're saving your breath just to breathe. So today's cardio, it's true. If you go to a gym, a lot of those treadmills are already occupied. That's why I bought my own elliptical machine for my house, so I don't have to go to the gym. And I can, hop on it anytime I want. Now, at the touch of a button, the rubber belt of the treadmill begins to glide underneath you. And for the next 20 minutes, the pitter-patter and those two words represent sounds to us. And we typically use pitter-patter to talk about little babies' feet. You know when they're toddlers and they're learning how to walk? The sound of those little steps are pitter-patter. But typically, we only use it for babies. But this is cute. The pitter-patter of your soles. Your soles are the bottom part of your shoe. Hitting the belt fills the room. I actually don't run on treadmills. I fast walk, but I do the incline, so it's like I'm walking up a hill.
Okay, so you hear the pitter-patter of the soles of your shoes hitting the belt, and that sound fills the room. As you said, pitter-patter refers to the sound of baby's feet, but it can also refer to the sound of falling rain. I think they use the phrase pitter-patter in that one song, "Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain." You'll hear the singer describe the rain as pitter-patter, and again, this sound fills up the room, as well as the sound of the feet of all the other runners in the room. And indeed, for sure, no gym is complete without the treadmill. Yes, you can't register for an exercise club or a gym without expecting to see a treadmill. That's a very common kind of exercise machine. I've done it once or twice myself. I don't particularly like it. I'm okay using a bicycle machine, like bicycle rollers and stuff like that, or even jumping on an exercise trampoline or a rebounder, as sometimes they're called.
Yeah, I think it's a little boring sometimes just to walk on a treadmill. I would prefer to go walking outside if I can, if the weather's good.
If there's a typhoon out there, it's
forget it. I have walked during typhoons because I didn't understand that trees could fall and hit me.
Or signs could go blowing around.
Yeah,
and stuff
no kidding.
That.
Yeah, I don't do that so much anymore. But sometimes we get days off during typhoon season and the wind's not very strong. So yes, I do go.
So sometimes they call off school and work and there's no big storm. But you can't blame them. There's no way to predict these things. But again, a gym has to have a treadmill. No gym is complete without one. And these cardio machines can be programmed to simulate the great outdoors, allowing you to adjust the speed and incline as you please. So if you simulate something, you just try to recreate the situation of something. Like, for example, if you're outside walking and it's kind of hilly where you live, well, that machine can kind of simulate that or recreate that situation where in some places it's easy to walk, whereas in other places it's more difficult to go uphill.
Yeah, I kind of like that you can change the incline. That's the steepness of the treadmill. I like that a lot.
Does the top part actually go higher than the lower, or does it just increase the tension?
No, it actually goes higher.
Okay.
On the good ones, I think on the cheap ones, who knows? But on the good ones, you can actually see it moving up.
Cool.
Yeah. So, but if I have a choice, I'd rather just go to the great outdoors, a phrase we use to talk about just being outside, especially in areas where it's not heavily constructed on. It's just got a lot of land, trees. It could be a forest. You see animals. That's the great outdoors. I wouldn't say that, like, let's see, what's an area that's a little far away? Taoyuan is not the great outdoors, It's just away from people and buildings.
Yeah, in a more wilderness kind of area, more natural setting like Hualien or Nantou or someplace like that, that's where you can really experience the great outdoors. And again, with this machine, you can adjust the speed and the incline, which is how high it is at one end and how low at the other end. and you can do this however you want. And despite this, even though this is true, treadmills were not invented for the sole purpose of fitness. They weren't invented just for exercise. Sole here just means the only purpose of fitness. They're not invented just for exercise. They were invented for other reasons.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next paragraph. Before the introduction of fossil-fueled machines in agriculture, treadmills were actually used on farms, and mills to churn butter need dough. It's dough before you bake it.
Yep.
And grind grain or pump water. Fossil fuel is just the gasoline, the oil that we use to power our machines and cars these days. And before we even had gasoline and oil that was used to power things, treadmills were used on farms. This is kind of fun. So this was a while ago. We've got mills. Mills are, I would say, like flour mills. There was a cool mill. When I was going to college, there was a mill about 20 miles away that we just go look at and kind of fun to walk around it. It's not in use anymore, but that's where they would grind the flour, grind the wheat so that it turned into flour. To churn butter, churning is to use a pounding process, you know, that you just keep hitting the butter with that wooden stick, I think. And the more you churn it, it turns into this creamy substance. So there's kneading. If you knead something, you take dough and you use your hands and you just keep working it and working it so that it becomes the right texture consistency to bake. Grind is similar to, I don't know, you take something big and you break it into small pieces.
Yeah, you kind of pulverize it. You pound it down into smaller pieces. You want to grind your coffee, for example. Take your beans and put them in the grinder. So you could do that with grain, which would be wheat, corn, barley, oats, whatever. And also you could use these treadmills to pump water out of the ground from a well in the ground. These were sources of power, especially in these different places on farms or in factories and mills, etc., etc. Well, that brings us to about the halfway point now, so we're going to take a little bit of a break now and turn things over to our Chinese teacher who just got done working out on a treadmill.
Hello everyone, my name is Tina. 今天的文章呢，重点单字就在这里 treadmill 代表着呢就是跑步机的意思。我们来看到第一个空格的句子 Indeed, no gym is blank one without the treadmill. 在这里用的是双重否定，没有一个健身房是怎么样，如果没有跑步机的话，也就是说每一个健身房一定要有跑步机才会叫是一个完整的健身房。在 be 动词后面呢，我们可以搭配一个形容词，搭配句意。第一题的标准答案可以选择 D, complete. Complete 在这里就是有完全的、完整的意思。而跑步机的作用在哪里呢？它比较特别，我们来看到第二个空格后半句提到 allowing you to blank to the speed and incline as you please. 跑步机的好处呢，就是可以让你怎么样，在 to 的后面可以加一个动词，你可以自行呢调整它的速度跟斜度。在这里我们可以选择 F 选项的 adjust， 就有调整的意思。而 incline 在这里当作名词，就是斜面、斜度的意思。接着来看到跑步机的由来，在第三个空格提到 Before the introduction of fossil-fueled machines in blank 3, treadmills were used on farms and mills. 其实呢，在这样子的一个情形当中，在还没有这样子化石燃料为动力的机器之前，跑步机啊，其实是被应用在农场跟磨坊里面的。在这里呢，我们会看到后面所描述的都是农业社会的状态，以及在这样的农业文化当中，所以搭配句意。第三题我们可以选择 I 选项的 agriculture， 代表着就是农业的意思。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, everybody, let's continue with our lesson. Again, we're talking about the origins of the treadmill. So far, we've talked about the treadmill as a kind of exercise machine that can stimulate the great outdoors, but treadmills were not invented for the sole purpose of fitness. They had other roles that they played before the Industrial Revolution. They were used in agriculture, they were used in mills, they kneaded dough, they ground grain, and they pumped water on farms and other places. Now, initially, at the beginning, these devices, these machines, relied on wind or water to operate, both of which could not provide continuous power. So, yes, indeed, windmills, of course, powered pumps. I know that in my uncle's home state of Iowa, they had windmills around, not like the ones in Holland, but similar. They used to pump water out of the ground. So that's similar, like a treadmill.
Yeah.
And but if you use wind power or water power, like from streams, it's not continuous, okay? Sometimes the wind is strong. Sometimes there's no wind at all. Sometimes it rains and the stream's got lots of water, but if it hasn't rained in many days, then the stream is very slow and doesn't provide a lot of power. Again, that is not continuous power that keeps on going.
Right. So when they didn't have the continuous power they needed, and to increase productivity, how much they produce, that's productivity. Farmers then thought, what else can I use to come up with that power? Well, they turned to, which means they chose to use this. They chose to use horses, goats, dogs. Goats are such nasty little animals, so I can't imagine goats helping. They are so mean. My sister has about 6 of them, and they're little mean suckers. So horses, goats, dogs. I've never seen a dog hooked up and walking around to provide that power in a mill. But dogs are pretty cute. I think if you'd hold out some meat in front of their nose, they would keep walking. And even human power to rotate the wheels of their farming equipment. What do we call it these days? If you have a farm, you have a rototiller. Rototiller! My dad has one that he uses in the backyard to plant some of his garden. And that now has electric power or gas power. But back then, they didn't have gas or electric. And they had to rely on animals or even humans. I bet the farmer got out there and just pulled his plow. Sometimes, you know.
You betcha. And I'm imagining here that the exercise treadmill is flat and you run on top of it, but the treadmills we're talking about here on farms and stuff like that are probably circular, where the animals are tied to a pole or something and they just simply walk in circles.
Yeah.
And then it spins something in the middle. It rotates the wheels. To rotate just means to spin something in circles, basically, around an axis at the center to rotate, okay? And, of course, they're rotating the wheels of their farming equipment. And we've mentioned this many times.
Yeah.
The word equipment cannot have an S at the end of it. Equipment is a non-count noun. Even though you can count those different machines, it's still non-count. You can't change the rule by adding an S to it. You are wrong.
And Tom just mentioned an important thing. Machine is countable. You can put an S on machine. So if you want to have, a plural noun that feels comfortable, use machines. Don't use equipment.
There you go.
Okay. So the next paragraph says the treadmill was also introduced to prisons where we hold prisoners, but not for the purposes of keeping prisoners fit. Back in the olden days, as we say, they didn't exercise like we do today because their whole lives, they were so physical. Think about the farming they had to do and the building. They didn't have any of our great machines. Machinery is also a plural noun, but don't put an S on that either. So machinery, equipment was very different back then. So how was this old treadmill used in a prison? What a weird idea. It was used as a cruel form of punishment. Nowadays, our prisoners sit in prisons and watch, cable TV and lift
they
weights.
watch reruns of Sesame Street. They watch Elmo all day long wearing these orange ice cream suits.
Yeah.
That's how they punish criminals nowadays. But back in the day, back in the 1800s, you've got this British engineer. He devised this staircase. To devise something means to think of an idea and then actually carry it out and invent that thing.
Yeah.
He invented, you could also just substitute the word invent here. He invented or devised the everlasting staircase to reform those convicts. They were bad people, so they needed to be reformed so they could return to society and play a useful role.
I'm not sure why he thought this would help reform them. I mean, they're simply exercising until they want to, fall over and die. He kept them on these treadmills, and I can't imagine being on a treadmill all day, but inmates would spend an average of 10 hours per day climbing an equivalent of 17,000 feet. I'm sure that's high. I'm just guessing. In 1818, this Sir William Cubitt was the one who devised this everlasting staircase. It's everlasting because it's eternal. You can never get off. It feels like you'll be on there forever. It's referred to as a correctional tool. If you correct somebody, they often call the prisons nowadays correctional facilities or correctional institutions. They're hoping the convicts will change. These criminals will reform and become good people, that when they get out of prison, they won't commit a crime again. It was nothing more, though, than a rotating hollow, meaning empty inside the middle, hollow cylinder, kind of a round shape with wooden steps around it. And I can't believe he would actually have these guys on there for an average of 10 hours per day. I bet they lost a lot of calories, Tom.
Yeah, it would be a good way to lose weight while you're in prison there. But even though you would not climb 17,000 feet, it was the equivalent. It was the same amount, but just in a different place or in a different form. They actually did not climb a 17,000-foot mountain. They were basically at the same elevation the same time. Now, the prison treadmill was not without its critics, though, which means people criticized it. They thought it was a bad idea. And thanks to the Prison Act, it was finally abolished in 1898. Okay, to abolish something means to get rid of something, to make it illegal forever.
Right.
Like in the United States, slavery was abolished after the Civil War.
Now on to our final paragraph. Over a century later, it's 100 years since this treadmill was used in a prison. Some people still regard the treadmill as a torture device, which is hilarious. That's just a joke. Torture is when you do horrible physical things to people that is just, it hurts. They torture a lot of people during war sometimes to get information from people. So it's just a joke. It's not really a torture device, but some people really hate exercising, and they really hate being inside a gym on a pretty day using a treadmill.
Exactly, but sometimes you have no choice. Yeah. But working out on a treadmill can be nice. You can listen to music, you can chat with other people and stuff like that. So yes, running with no end in sight can seem pointless. Yeah, it seems kind of pointless. It's like watching a dog or a cat chase itself in circles, chasing after its own circle. It's pointless. It's not actually accomplishing anything. But don't let this stationary machine fool you if something's stationary.
Yeah.
It is just staying in one place. It's not moving, and it's not intended to be moved. A treadmill is stationary. Bicycle rollers are stationary, etc.
Yeah.
They're just not meant to actually go anywhere.
Yeah. Stationary bikes. I'd kind of like to have a stationary bike at home.
Yeah, at least you can sit down while you're exercising.
Yeah, just turn on the TV.
Although your butt might get sore, but you never know. Maybe you can stand up and pedal from time to time.
But I like being distracted while I'm exercising because I hate to sweat, but you got to do it. So it's one of the most popular pieces of gym equipment around for burning calories. I say, put the incline, walk as fast as you can, get done faster, and get outside and play. So that's the history or the origins of the treadmill. Very interesting. Right now, we're going to listen one more time to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back to wrap this up.
接着我们来看到第4个空格 Blank 4 These devices relied on wind or water to operate 以前呢这些的装置设备都是依靠风力或者是水力来运作，这里在谈到的是以前一刚开始最初的时候，可以使用一个副词搭配句意，我们可以选择 K 选项Initially 就代表着起始最初的意思。接着第5个空格 To increase blank 5 farmers turned to horses, goats, dogs and even human power 其实呢如果用风或水来运作的话，其实生产力是不太够的，那么为了要增加怎么样，农夫就转向像是马或者是狗或者是山羊甚至是人力来转动这个轮子。第5题我们要增加的呢是什么东西，选择一个名词搭配句意，可以选择1选项的 productivity 也就是有生产力制造力的意思。接着第6个空格前面提到其实以前跑步机呢是被用在监狱里面的，第6个空格的句子写着 Instead, it was a cruel form of blank 6既然是用在监狱里面，所以当时它是一种残忍的什么形式呢？当然监狱里面关的是犯人，要惩罚他们，所以第6题可以选择 A 选项 punishment 也就是有责罚的意思。In 1818, Sir William Cobbett devised the everlasting staircase to reform blank 7其实在1818年的时候呢，这位爵士发明出了这个无尽的楼梯来改造改变谁呢？当然用在监狱里面就是想要改造这些囚犯，所以第7题可以选择 G 选项 convicts。而接着来看到第8个空格 The prison treadmill was not without its blank aid, though 然而在这里 though 是有然而的意思，当时呢用在监狱里面的跑步机也并非是没有它的怎么样，正因为有人批评他，所以后来这样子的一个惩罚就被废止了，所以搭配文意第8题我们可以选择 J 选项的 critics 指的呢就是反对者批评的人，正因为有这些人批评，所以这样的方式就被废止了。第9个空格 Running with no end inside can seem blank 9其实你在跑步机的时候呢，其实有些人就是把它视为一种刑具，因为呢永无止境的这样子的跑步看起来真的是怎么样呢？ Seem 是一个连追动词，后面可以接形容词 H 选项的 pointless 代表着是毫无意义的意思。接着最后一句 is still one of the most popular pieces of gym equipment around for burning blank 10当然咯，在健身房里面跑步机还是一个最受欢迎的健身器材，因为它可以帮助你燃烧什么？当然是燃烧卡路里，所以第10题的标准答案就选择 B calories。 OK， 以上就是今天的课文讲解，谢谢收听。
That's it for today, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we have given you some encouragement to head down to the exercise gym and work out on a treadmill if you don't want to go jogging in the great outdoors.
Right.
From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
See ya.